All right. My name is Todd Behrens, and I'm the director of the Sioux City Art Center, and I am standing inside the Jensen, Everest, and Terra galleries here, which is the site of this year's Briar Cliff Review Exhibition. It's a great show. We look forward to seeing you down here when you have the time and feel safe doing so. If you've been part of this exhibition and the reception for this exhibition in past years, you know it's usually an amazingly energetic, exciting celebration of the arts and writing. Usually have more than 150 people here, packed in, eating food, listening to artists, and listening to readings from the Briar Cliff Review. So it's a little sad that we can't all be together, but we're so grateful to everyone involved that we were able to bring the journal back into existence, bring this exhibition back on display. And I think everyone involved has done a great job of making tonight feel as much as possible like our usual receptions. And it gives us hope. The exhibition is just extraordinary. It's eclectic, and yet everything is consistently good and interesting. I've only had a chance to do a little bit of reading of this year's essays and poetry, and they're just amazing. This last year has been such an extraordinary year in so many ways, and it's been a moment for those who have the skill to create and to write. It's been a great time, all things considered, for such creativity. And the rest of us who are less creative get to share what they've been able to create and learn and grow from it. So with that, I think I will turn this event over to the curators of the exhibition. This is Jeff Baldus, who's professor of art at Briar Cliff University and serves as their art editor, and Marianne Redding, curator here at the Sioux City Art Center. As I mentioned, up until a year ago, I was actually doing part of the curating of this, and now I realize that I must have been the weak link because this year is just amazing. So we look forward to seeing you here as soon as you can get here. And you don't have to worry about getting here too fast because the show does stay on view until July. So Jeff and Marianne, would you like to join me?
Thank you, Todd. And thanks, Marianne. I'm grateful to the Art Center and pleased on behalf of Briar Cliff to express our gratitude for the arts to the Art Center. To you, Todd, as director, and Marianne as curator, for your help and support throughout this project. I'm also grateful for the ongoing support that the Art Center continues to give to the artists in our community. That is so appreciated by the artists. The Briar Cliff Review fits well with the Sioux City Art Center's mission to focus on artists of the region and of the Midwest. One of the goals of the art in the magazine is to demonstrate the quality, vitality, and relevance of the art being produced in our region. I think the selections in this issue of the magazine prove once again that great art doesn't just happen on the East or West coasts. It is also being curated here in the Midwest, or created here in the Midwest as well. As has been typical of the artworks in past issues, many of this year's artworks are produced by artists who double as teachers, helping to educate and prepare the next generation of artists. A sampling of our art contributors reveals artists who are our current or retired faculty from Midwest institutions, including Briar Cliff University, Augustana University, the School of Art Institute of Chicago, the University of South Dakota, Grinnell College, University of Nebraska in Omaha and Lincoln, and Doane University. These artists and teachers have had and continue to have a tremendous impact on the type and the quality of art being produced today. The exhibition, as Todd said, eventually will be online where you can take a virtual tour. But I hope that you take the opportunity to bring your family and friends to the Art Center to view it in person. It is well worth the trip. Thank you, and I'd like to introduce Marianne Redding, curator of the Art Center.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening for the virtual reception of the Briar Cliff Review Exhibition. As Todd and Jeff both mentioned, the galleries at the Art Center are open. We hope you'll visit us in person. Masks are required, and as is social distancing. All of those policies are in place to keep everyone safe while you're visiting. And before we really get started tonight, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the many First Peoples who called the Siouxland region home prior to European contact, and to those who are still prominently here today. The Omaha, the Ponca, the Iowa, the Yankton, the Yankton Dakota, the Santee Dakota, and the Ho-Chunk Winnebago peoples. It's important to remember the history and context of the land we now call Sioux City. Several organizations to look to for more information regarding Native American cultural heritage are the Native Governance Center, Seeding Sovereignty, the Office of Native Americans via the Iowa Department of Human Rights, and the Native American Council at the University of Iowa. It's been a great pleasure to work with Jeff Baldus on my first Briar Cliff Review installation, and I have been introduced to so many artists across the Midwest. I'm so pleased to have had the chance to review all of the submissions. And of course, I can't turn the page very easily, so the opportunity for representation in a prestigious publication accompanied by an exhibition is unique. It encourages professional artists to submit their best work, and at the same time, it provides students not only with the opportunity for exposure, right, as they get out of school, but also to discover role models from outside their representative institutions. The diversity of work in this exhibition is deliberate. We selected artworks that would showcase the breadth of ideas and the styles behind much of the best art produced recently in the region. The featured artists contribute to shaping the cultural landscape in our area and beyond. So please do come and see the exhibition in person. It is on view until July 18th. And with that, we are now going to move to the pre-recorded part of this section. So give me a few minutes while I share my screen and switch over to the pre-recorded readings for tonight. Let's see. Okay, close this. And hopefully this will be easy to do. Let's see. Stop share. Escape. Okay. One thing I would like to do while we're changing things out is, if you are not muted, please make sure that you're muted so that when people are reading, that we can hear what they have to say without any interruptions. Thank you so much for doing that.
Good evening. I'm Tricia Kern-Sheehan, editor of the Briar Cliff Review. I'd like to welcome you to this virtual event to honor our writers and artists and to thank our donors and friends who support us. In my note from the editor in this year's issue, I write, "We survived 2020. And the Briar Cliff Review emerges stronger than ever. In times of turmoil, we turn to the arts to find solace and safety. As editors, We saw more submissions this year than ever before. People stayed home because of the COVID pandemic, and they wrote, painted, photographed, sketched, and submitted their works to us. Art has always been the raft onto which we climb to save our sanity, wrote artist Dorothea Tanning. We cling to what keeps us invigorated, what sustains us. We keep composing in our writing groups, doing Zoom meetings, reading and connecting with characters in novels and memoirs, and entering contests or submitting to magazines. It's what has kept us going. This January, I finished reading a book called 9th Street Women, 5 Painters and the Movement That Changed Modern Art. In this book, Mary Gabriel writes, the work of artists during troubled periods throughout history acted as a kind of beacon, a ping from the hidden depths, reminding those who search for it that all evidence to the contrary, civilization had not perished. If there is art, there is hope. This year, we shout out that hope is alive and is reflected in the works in our issue. In our 33 years, we have published so far the works of 2,051 artists and writers from 49 states and from many foreign countries. Our magazine emerges from the efforts of our artists and writers, faculty editors, designer Rich Yates, marketing director Judy Thompson, and many of our students who work on the magazine. We all know it takes the eyes, ears, and hands of many people to produce an issue, and for this we are grateful. Our program tonight is a sampling of the many different pieces in the review. So let's begin with Jean Emmons, poetry editor.
My name is Jean Emmons, and I'm poetry editor of the Briar Cliff Review. Our contest-winning poem this year, out of more than 800 submitted, is Burning by John Blair. John Blair is the author of 6 books of poetry, including playful song called Beautiful, winner of the Iowa Poetry Prize in 2016. He directs the creative writing program at Texas State University and lives in San Marcos, Texas. We chose this poem because it takes on big issues and treats them with the seriousness and depth they deserve. The poem, as its title, Burning, indicates, takes off from the devastating forest fires which have ravaged the American West in recent years. But it also touches on deep faults in human nature, especially greed and ambition, and the various theologies that have addressed that. In the poem, Christian and Hindu theology intersect. There are a couple of terms in this poem that might need explaining. Matarizvan is a Vedic god, both the god of wind and the giver of fire. He is sometimes identified with Agni, the fire god. But the term Agni does double duty in this poem as the Christian Lamb of God, Agnus Dei, who is spirit made flesh. As the poem wraps up, you will notice an emphasis on human consciousness and knowledge, which, like fire, is both a gift and a curse, and which sets us apart from indifferent nature. The poem begins with an epigraph from the Buddha's fire sermon. All things, O you priests, are burning. Burning by John Blair. We watch the smoke that sniffs its way through this ever-burning world, dogged as a hound, because where there's us, we know there's fire. It smells of moles and turtles and fallen angels, every last one charred and then forgotten, and grinds itself against the thin-skinned groves through which our wasting wanders. Like smudge pots chuffing throaty catarrh, or like engines as they burn old lucre into smog. It coats the world like smokers' lungs with compromise. We turn away from what we can, our hands dark as char with taking. But all of life is burning, and the ash doesn't know or care that it was oil or tree or any one of us. Agni, the hidden fire kindled inside the insensate womb of matter, was freed by Matarizvan, breath of the world, so as to comfort and consume us all from beginning to risen end. So we take the flint, devoted as we are to the fires that begot that first freed flame, and hold it on our tongues like the sacred host it is. Behold the Lamb of God, so that we can taste dead sons. Day by day, we feed the flames, flesh and bones and heartwood, and wait for the heavens to break the earth into sizzle and lament, because only then will the smoke decline at last to mist. And the mist will shimmer, dewy with grief, on the backs of carrion birds heavy on their branches, who will neither notice its touch nor care, unstirred as the leaves that blaze without ambition in the autumn trees.
Hi, I'm Amelia Skinner-Saint, one of the fiction editors of the Briar Cliff Review. I'll be reading a selection from our contest-winning story, The Icon Painter, by Tim Bascom. Tim Bascom is from Topeka, Kansas, and is the author of 4 previous books, including Climbing Lessons, Stories of Fathers and Sons, plus 2 prize-winning memoirs about his childhood in East Africa, Chameleon Days and Running to the Fire. His fiction has appeared in Fiction Southeast, Main Street Rag, Lolitamba. His essays have won prizes at the Missouri Review and the Florida Review, being selected for the anthology's Best Creative Nonfiction and Best American Travel Writing. So here is the beginning of The Icon Painter by Tim Bascom, this year's Briar Cliff Review fiction winner. Of all the paintings you could ruin, why one of ours? The curator wanted to know, lowering her face into her hands until she was hidden behind a screen of silver hair. Why not mess with some kid's finger painting? Zaditu wanted to explain, but how? She had been in the US for only half a year, speaking broken English, and she had been working at the Art Institute for only 4 months. So how to explain that this particular painting had become as recognizable to her as her own eyes in a mirror? How to show the curator that she knew what was missing from it now, even though she had never seen art of this nature back in Ethiopia, with all its random slashes of color. The piece they were talking about hung in the central room of the modernist exhibit, right across from a much larger painting that Zaditu disliked very much. A giant canvas with drab colors splattered all over it. She had been so thankful not to get assigned to that wing of the museum when she had started working as a guard. The art in those rooms seemed like a mockery to her, at least at first. A painting of a fireplace with a locomotive chugging out of it, a big blue and yellow bullseye, a pile of shimmering candy in foil wrappers, which, according to one of her fellow guards, was a portrait of someone in Los Angeles. Crazy, completely ibidi, as people back home would say. As for the huge splatter painting, it was such a mess of black swirls and artichoke greens and washed out pinks that it actually made her angry. Why would anyone want such stuff? Paintings like that seemed sinister, as if they had come from the mind of a lunatic. She wanted to explain all this to the curator, but Zatitu was terribly aware of the little bottle of paint that she was still clutching in her pants pocket and the tiny, still wet brush. She was also conscious of the security camera at their back. The two of them shouldn't be here. It was 15 minutes past closing. By now, all the other staff were on Michigan Avenue catching buses, and Zaudito should be there too. I will end it there. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dr. Jeff Gard. I'd like to read an excerpt from the short story, Moonlight over Nuremberg by Kathy Bergen. Kathy is a former journalist. She recently worked as an urban affairs reporter for the Chicago Tribune. She lives on the north side of Chicago. Sitting on his cot, his back to the wall, Dworsky brought an old gold cigarette to his lips as he scanned his mother's letter yet again. Don't take any unnecessary chances, Reuben. Like tiny moths swarming, the words irritated, aggravated, demanded to be brushed away. What kind of nitwit did she think he was? And his bunkmate, was he ever going to turn in for the night? How about this Louis Armstrong? Beckman asked from his cot, his head nodding to the beat. He's flying with this Fats Waller soon. The jazz musician's voice, crackly and warm, poured from the radio. Dworsky's uniform on a wall hook stirred in an icy breeze from gaps in the casement window frames. Through the panes, he could see the Nuremberg Palace of Justice, its peaked masonry lit by a half moon, piercing the night sky. At 6 o'clock the next morning, he and Beckman would cross the road as they did each day, show their military passes to the sentries at the gate, wolf down scrambled eggs in the staff dining room, and assume their posts at the war crimes trial. Beckman's duty would start outside a basement cell where he'd guard a Nazi prisoner as he rose from bed, washed and dressed. Dworsky would test the Jerry-built audio system in the courtroom, making sure it was ready to deliver each damning detail in English, French, Russian, and German. A crucial job, he told himself, making sure the world could hear about the horrors loud and clear. Beckman rolled onto his side and closed his eyes as Armstrong teased in his ripe baritone. Ain't misbehaving, saving my love for you. I don't know who looks less like a landsman, you or him. In case you didn't notice, we have to be up in 6 hours. Aren't we the lucky dogs, Beckman said. Ration cards, a PX full of ciggies and chocolate, the Nazis under our boots. The DJ's voice, laced with static, topped the hour. You're listening to Midnight over Munich from Armed Forces Radio. Tired as he was, Dworsky did love the music, how it brought him back to last senior prom, when he guided his girl across the dance floor, his arms circling her waist, his face in her soft hair. But it was so late now, and Beckman never seemed tired, never ached for sleep, or wanted to shut out the light. Dworsky crushed his cigarette into a sludgy coffee cup on the floor. Let's call it a day, huh? You got the boys tomorrow? That's only clever the first 10 times you say it. Of course, he had faced the whole lineup, Gerry, who inked the monstrous final solution, running his fat fingers through his silken hair. Hess, secretary to Hitler, hiding behind dark glasses, his nose in a girlish book, Der Leusel. Stryker, peddler of Jew-hating propaganda, counting the minutes until he could run naked in his cell. All told, a roster of 20 sadistic souls. Jab him a little tomorrow, Beckman said. A little goading never hurts. For what, some cheap laughs? You know what's the funniest joke? Beckman snapped off the radio. This bullshit trial, the self-important lawyers, the judges in their fancy gowns. Spare me. The Soviets had it right. Line them up and shoot. Straightening up, he walked to the windows, slammed each one shut. The panes rattled in their weathered frames. We're better than that, Dworsky said, slipping under his blanket, the wool itchy as a burlap sack. That's rich, Beckman said. Maybe you have a sense of humor after all.
Hi, I'm Paul Weber, nonfiction editor for the Briar Cliff Review, and I'm going to read some of the essay, Guilty Bystanders by Jacob Appel. This essay was a nonfiction winner. Jacob Appel is from New York City, author of 4 history novels, short story collections, essays, mysteries, volumes of poetry, and a compendium of medical dilemmas. He's a physician, an attorney, and a bioethicist based in New York City. My visit coincided with the town's annual window painting contest. For one weekend each autumn, local merchants yield their storefronts to an army of grade school Gauguins and preteen Picassos who decorate the plate glass with images of witches, skeletons, gravestones, and similar Halloween iconography. Prizes are awarded in various age groups and categories: originality, humor, technique. A little later on in the essay, we seated ourselves at the window of a local cafe. I enjoyed chatting with the high school student immensely. The young woman was seated at an angle that exposed my eyes to a shaft of blinding white sun. I adjusted my own chair accordingly, and the dastardly crime unfolded before me in all of its bald audacity. On a side street, in a slight recess that rendered her invisible to pedestrians on the particular avenue, a lone artist honed her craft upon an isolated window. She held a brush in one hand, scooping paint out of a can as though scraping sauce from a pot, then dabbing the glass with the bristles. Like George Seurat capturing a distant Sunday afternoon at La Grande Jatte, and to my amazement, she appeared roughly the same age as the French pointillist had been then, too. Maybe older. Behind her, a pudgy girl of 6 or 7 or 8 stood quiet as the angel of death, watching the adult, presumably her mother, impose a grown-up's pictorial vision on a contest designed entirely for children. So arrived my moment of reckoning. Years as an emergency room psychiatrist had taught me that confronting the woman directly would serve no purpose. People do not appreciate being shamed, especially in front of their own children, and I was in no mood to be assailed with indignation, of which such offenders always have an excess supply, or to find myself peppered with a fresh cone of acrylic primer. The latter scenario was far too easy to envision. My tenure in the ER had seen me lacquered with oatmeal and chocolate milk and body fluids of every scent and flavor. Or for all I knew, Mrs. Seurat, concluding with the strong offense, would serve as the most provident defense, might have shouted that I had attempted to steal her pallet or kidnap her child. No, confrontation was the refuge of codgers and nosy parkers. The same sort of time-heavy nags who penned letters to their congresspersons petitioning for more speed bumps, slower traffic signals, and alterations to the design of the currency. It was also about as productive as conducting a citizen's arrest for fraud. This was not the Handmaid's Tale. Outside of Cromwell's England and revolutionary Iran, common decency is rarely instilled by well-intentioned strangers patrolling the public street. I had only 2 options. I could report the fiend to the authorities, invoking upon her the wrath of the entire squadron of helicopter moms, or I could turn a blind eye to injustice, like the ironically named Joseph Fink, remembered by crime buffs as a neighbor who responded to the stabbing of Kitty Genovese by taking a nap. Who would have known that my ethical Rubicon flowed through the commercial center of a tony New England village? That history would have thrown down its gauntlet while I nibbled on brioche and sipped espresso.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Allen. I'm one of the nonfiction editors and Voices of the Great Plain editors for the Briar Cliff Review. And it's my honor to get to share with you Sean W. Murphy's The Flies. Sean Murphy of New Mexico is the 2018 National Endowment of the Arts Fellow in Creative Writing and the author of 3 novels with Bantam Dell Books, as well as his nonfiction, One Bird, One Stone. He won the Hemingway Faulkner Award for his first novel and the 2017 William Faulkner Wisdom Award for his novel in progress, Wilson's Way. Flies is a story of a journey into the Badlands, the Black Hills, Lakota country. It's about learning to read signs, literal, physical ones that we see when we're driving, but also the more figurative and mystical ones, when we lift the veil and perceive on what we perceive as truth and reality. The flies. How black was that night? Black as the black ink of squids. Black like the underside of everything. Like a mind without a single thought. Like a void you reach into when you try to retrieve a memory and find it gone. Black as blood would be if it weren't red, but black instead. The map said there was a road here, and this is a road, though not one that seems to be going anywhere. It looked like an easy shortcut across the Dakota Plains to a southern entrance to Badlands National Park, saving many hours circling around to the north. I can sense the broad sense of prairie coasting out into the blackness on either side, brooding with the spirits of those who lived here before. And I've been thinking about the Lakota Sioux all day. I feel the tug through unknown ancestors of my complicity and the bloodshed that was perpetuated here. An unseen finger scratches along my spine as I imagine spirits that might or might not surround me in the darkness. I remember the flies. It was the flies that got me into this mess, forced me out of the Black Hills and down onto the plains, onto this godforsaken excuse for a road. Only yesterday, though it now seems a century ago. My plan seemed perfect, hole up in the Black Hills and work on my novel. No cell phone or email or friends stopping by to interrupt me. It had seemed an ideal setting. The sacred hills of the Lakota, looming, dark, and holy. But it was the flies who appeared to be the real owners of the Black Hills. At last, I determined to stay put and take this as a test of will. But word must have gone throughout the insect telegraph that there was a sitting duck, someone foolish enough to remain exposed while the other campers sat in their air-conditioned Winnebagos watching television. And the flies descended in their multitudes. They thronged, they swarmed, they scorned my 100% deep jungle strength repellent. They lapped it up, tumbled in intoxicated circles and came back for more. Miniature toilet plunger tongues plopping against my skin, sopping up sweat and leaves behind dollops of buffalo dung or 3-day-old roadkill or whatever it was they'd been eating. Until suddenly my equilibrium ran out. Wounded knee. A slow to a near stop stare while my gut tightens in knots. No wonder I felt so uneasy. I'm passing within a few miles of one of the ugliest atrocities in this nation's history. Wounded Knee. The place where just over a century ago, hundreds of unarmed Lakota warriors, women, children, grandparents, even babies, been slaughtered by the forces of a country founded on the ideals of freedom and equality. Wounded Knee. These people had all been unarmed. A mass grave at the site held the remains of hundreds of victims. Wounded Knee. Stare at the sign. Time slides away as the images pass before my eyes. Fallen women in buckskin, dying braves, crying children, bleeding grandparents. Their souls seem to populate the night, as numerous as the stars. Meanwhile, here I am, a lone descendant of European invaders, ambling along as though on some kind of pleasure trip. At the same moment, a tickling sensation, which first I take for nerves, ascends to the back of my neck. But then comes the faint, unmistakable sensation of tiny wingtips against my earlobe. Bzzz. I'm getting as far as I can from the Badlands, Pine Ridge and Wounded Knee, out of the Dakotas altogether. I'll head for Des Moines, Omaha, Denver, somewhere too crowded and polluted to have swarming insects or roads that end in the middle of nowhere, tossing you out of your comfortable certainties into some 100-year-old nightmare. In the bright sun of morning, back in the web of civilization, the events of the past days seem unlikely, no more than a dream. But this is a big country. Time is deep, and the nights are long. And I wonder how long it will be till I shake from my mind those hours of darkness. Thank you.
Thank you, editors, for reading of your excerpts from the review. And now I'd like you to meet Rich Yates, our design editor, who is instrumental in making our magazine a thing of beauty.
Hi, my name is Rich Yates. I'm the design editor of the Briar Cliff Review, and I teach graphic design at Briar Cliff University. I have the privilege of working alongside a talented group of students to lay out and showcase the excellent works of our contributors. The Briar Cliff Review offers a really interesting design challenge, and that almost every art image and poem that we use, they break the layout grid. This means every page is carefully scrutinized in order to create the most beautiful magazine possible. Thank you for joining us tonight.
I'd like to introduce our two assistant student editors, Sarah Lammers and Brittany Griner. This year in the fall, they led the team. They record and read manuscripts, help narrow the field of finalists, assist with rejection and acceptances, copy, edit, and proof, and overall keep the magazine running. Sarah Lammers and Brittany Griner, thank you for your commitment and leadership this year.
Hello, my name is Sarah Lammers, and I'm an environmental science and English double major here at Briar Cliff University. My hometown is Hartington, Nebraska, and this year for the Briar Cliff Review, I worked as an assistant editor.
My name is Brittany Griner. I am a senior here at Briar Cliff. I am majoring in English with a minor in writing, and I'm an assistant editor at the Briar Cliff Review.
In the fall, a team of advanced reviewers met to read manuscripts and narrow the field for faculty editors. Then during J term, many of these same students returned to help produce the magazine. They copy edited, proofed, wrote contributors' pages, and helped design. And now I'd like you to meet those students.
Hi, I'm Connor Mahoney, an English and history major from Seattle, Washington. I worked on the Briar Cliff Review as an advanced reader and copy editor.
Hi, my name is Haley Cobe, and I am an English and secondary education major from Sioux City, Iowa, and I worked as an advanced reader and copy editor for the Briar Cliff Review.
Hello, I'm Tigger Kesters. I am an English major with a minor in theology and Spanish. I am from South Sioux City, Nebraska. This year I worked on the Briar Cliff Review as an advanced reader and copy editor.
Hi, I'm Faith Harvey, a senior biochemistry major from Lincoln, Nebraska, and this year I worked on the review as an advanced reader and copy editor.
Hello, my name is Carly Sybil. I'm a secondary education and English major with an endorsement in special education. I'm from Banning, Iowa, and I worked as an advanced reader and copy editor for the Briar Cliff Review.
Hi, my name is Damon Anderson. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I major in English and a minor in writing. I worked as a copy editor and a proofer.
I'm Cassie Clark. I'm a graphic design and business major from Carlisle, Iowa, and I worked on the design team with Rich Yates.
Hi, I'm Julie Knowles. I am a senior graphic design and mass communications major and a photography minor
I'm from Ventura, California, and I worked with Rich Yates as an assistant design editor for the Briar Cliff Review.
Hello, I'm Ida Nielsen. I'm a junior and I'm a graphic design major and I have a minor in photography. I work with Rich Yates as an assistant design editor.
I'd like to thank all the students who worked on this magazine. One student, Tyler Wynn, could not be with us. Tyler was one of our advanced readers in the fall. And to all of the contributors and donors, we will be sending you your copies of the review in 2 weeks. And now we switch to the Art Center to meet two of our artists.
It will take us just a minute to switch out the screen and we'll turn it around and we'll introduce you to all of the visual artists who are joining us tonight. Okay. Should be set.
All right. Well, that is a big change this year from previous receptions. And it was always so fun to get together because so many of the artists represented in the magazine were present for the evening reception. And for many, it was the first time I had a chance to meet them. But we do have two artists tonight with us. The first one is a student at Briar Cliff who will be graduating in just a couple weeks, Brittany Evanger. Brittany is from Seattle, and in a few weeks, she will be returning home to begin her career as an artist and as an art educator. So we're going to take just a second here to turn the computer around. Brittany will be standing by her piece that's in the show and talking about that for just a couple minutes. Thank you.
There you go.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Jeff, for introducing me. Like you said, my name is Brittany Evanger. I am a student at Briar Cliff University, and I am originally from Seattle, Washington. So I am majoring in English, art, and in education. So I'm super excited to be featured in this year's review. It's something that I've seen other students, other peers of mine, and professors collaborate on for the last 3 years while I've been a student at Briar Cliff. So it's been a constant publication in my life, something that I've really looked forward to seeing. And like previous individuals have said who have spoken tonight, the reception is something that we have all looked forward to just within this community at Briar Cliff. So I'm super grateful that we were able to have a virtual reception this year. So my piece in the review featured behind me right here, it is called Dissension. I just recently created it actually as a part of my senior thesis show. As a senior art student at Briar Cliff, we get to have our own small intimate gallery reception where we get to showcase our work and everything that we have worked on these past couple of years. And this was the main piece in my show and my show postcard. So it is created by found objects. It is wooden dowels and a collection of different sized cardboard tubes. It's kind of funny actually how it came to be. I was really in an artist's rut. I was feeling unmotivated, and I think a lot of people, while trying to create through COVID, maybe had similar feelings that I was having. And I was kind of going through some random supplies that we've accumulated at Briar Cliff, and I came across all of these round figures and that were extremely long. And I just was really drawn to the roundness of them, and I had never really worked with these types of materials. And so I began cutting them and gluing them together and just creating forms. And ultimately I came up with these two pieces right here. So the word dissension, I've been asked multiple times, how did you come up with it? Why does this represent this piece? And I think for my own aspect, and as an educator, I kind of really live through my pieces and I start to become familiar with them. So dissension, if you know the word, it is a disagreement. It can be temporary, last for decades, and stresses a division between pieces. So while I was creating, I saw these two pieces standing behind me, polling in competition with each other. As I grew more attached to one of the forms, I would feel like the other one was pulling away, and I would disregard it for a while and go back to it. And I was in this constant battle with myself as I was trying to really figure out if I wanted to just continue to work on one or to continue to create both of them. And ultimately, they needed each other and I needed both of them while I was creating and trying to showcase my ideas through these objects. And in the end, I came up with these two. And instead of a harmony, I felt it's more of a conflict. And so that is ultimately how I came up with the name Dissension. Thank you for having me tonight. And here is Jeff again.
Thanks, Brittany. The next artist we're going to hear from is Christopher Meyer. Chris is one of the associate professors of art at University of South Dakota in Vermilion. He is a sculptor and an installation artist and very active in the cast iron community throughout the country. Chris's work is featured this year on our cover, and you will all be getting your magazine shortly. This is what the magazine looks like this year. And I'm just going to let Chris tell you a little bit about his sculptures. He has two works that are in the magazine this year. So Chris.
This one, okay. Oh, we can.
I don't know if we can see it or not, but I'm too tall.
You're too tall?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that you can maybe see it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Meyer. I teach at the University of South Dakota. I teach sculpture. I've been there for 15 years now. And in my time there, I've come to be a pretty active member in the cast iron art community. I'm a board member of the Western Cast Iron Art Alliance, and I've done a lot of work in cast iron. Over the last 4 or 5 years, I suppose my work has become maybe a little bit more political. And this year has given ample opportunities to make comments, to present a stance that I might maybe be able to make statements that I can't necessarily make all the time. The work that's on the front cover this year, Mass Consciousness, is a self-portrait of myself, done with a skin-safe silicone mold rubber. So I had to set up an apparatus underneath a mask to allow myself to breathe through. And then it took about 45 minutes to an hour to undergo that molding process. It was really, I've had my face molded before, but this is probably the most uncomfortable experience in any kind of body casting that I've ever done. And it's an excellent metaphor for how uncomfortable wearing a mask is. That pressure, that oppression, that quality that masking is given us. The other work that I have in the show is called Prescription, and it's an IV tower. In fact, I'm going to take you with me over here to take a look at it. There it is. So it's an IV stand like you would find in a hospital, but it's, instead of medicine bags or blood bags hanging from it, it is disposable face masks. The masks themselves have been saturated and stained with iron oxide. I chose iron oxide as a metaphor for life. Iron is the chemical that gives our blood its red color. It is what enables us to move oxygen around our whole entire bodies, allowing us to stay alive and breathe. It's an incredibly important thing. And it also is the color of death for many people, that red stained color. It is a matter of life and death, the wearing of a mask. I live in South Dakota. This year has been an incredibly trying time. There's a lot of differing opinions upon masks, some of them very political. There are a lot of people that believe it is a slight on liberty. I see it as a prescription to keep us healthy, to keep us all safe. Sometimes in a gallery, you can present information and not have to do what I'm doing right now, which is speaking about it and telling all the stories about all of these things. But you can let people think for themselves when presented with sometimes what might be a controversial idea. I wish you could all join us, and I hope you do have a chance to come to the gallery. It's a really great show this year. A really diverse group of work, very high quality stuff. So I thank you for your time. It's nice to meet you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Brittany. And everybody who has joined us tonight, I really want to thank you so much for your time and for being here with us tonight. And I hope that everybody will come into the Sioux City Art Center on your own and see the exhibition in person. Again, it's up through July 18th, and we hope that you will join us in person to see the exhibition. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. Bye-bye.